Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our series of talks for International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day. And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by a really good friend of mine, Andrew Shaw. He's a member of the British Computing Society's Special Interest Group for software testing, and he's also the Diversity and Inclusion Officer for the South Yorkshire British Computing Society branch. So welcome, Andrew. It's a real pleasure to have you here today.
Hi, Lisa. Good to see you again. Hi, everybody.
Okay. Thanks, Andy. So we'll kick off by just setting the scene and defining the issue of imposter syndrome a bit from your perspective. So, um, how would you define imposter syndrome, and how would you say it uniquely manifests in those of us who are neurodivergent compared to neurotypical people?
So say that your imposter syndrome is um, where you feel that you're not good enough compared to neurotypical people, or that you feel like you're a fraud, or that you shouldn't be at a certain setting, or doing a certain role, or at certain kind of events or conversations as well. Um, Partly because businesses and organisations don't always see the value that a neurodivergent professional brings, or there's a there's a lack of awareness in some areas of neurodivergence as well. So with some of the roles I've done, and with some of the things I've done as well, I have felt a lot of imposter syndrome, feeling like I shouldn't be there, or there's somebody better than me to do a certain role, or a certain thing, or talk, or even talk about a specific subject as well, if delivering presentations as well. So it's manifested a while ago for myself, um, a good while ago for myself. I was at a placement once where there was three of us students. I was the only one who was neurodivergent, but as but but the other students were doing well, learning how to program and picking up things a lot faster than me, and I just felt like a complete fraud. I just thought I wasn't even good enough to be working in that role. But I think it happens to even the best of us as well. And I've seen a lot of professionals who are really good in their own fields having imposter syndrome as well, and sort of feeling that they're not good enough, or they feel like they're fakes and stuff like that.
Absolutely. And what really blew my mind when I started really researching into imposter syndrome
Yeah,
is how many well-known celebrities or
yeah,
famous people or people that are really good at what they do
yeah.
also have those levels of imposter syndrome. And the one that I just could not get my head around was Freddie Mercury of Queen. And I really, struggled with how can if somebody like Freddie that had billions of people in the palm of his hand at that iconic Live Aid performance, yet was physically sick before any performance because he was so worried that he was a fake and a fraud and he wasn't good enough. And he would come off the stage from every performance and say to the rest of the band, "Was I all right, darlings? Do you think that they like me?" And I just think if Freddie Mercury could have
Yeah,
levels of imposter syndrome, yeah, I just even now I struggle to get my head around that. So you're so right, and it does affect everybody and anybody regardless of background or how much you achieve. Um, Coming on a little bit to something that I know as a neurodivergent person, I did my entire life, which was to mask as many of my differences as possible to try in some way to fit in with my sort of the peer groups and other people. So, how would you say that masking contributes to imposter syndrome?
I think that masking would contribute to imposter syndrome. For example, just trying to change who you are just to fit in, or as people aren't always aware of what we can bring, or also being sort of like supported in a nurturing environment as well. So a lot of the time myself, I've masked what I have as imposter syndrome as well by just not always asking questions, particularly the questions which might perceive daft, which now I start doing a lot more as well, just because of the fear of being embarrassed, the fear of feeling like I don't know anything, and just pretending to assume that I knew everything as well, and just sort of trying to just hide who I was, just to sort of pretend to be somebody I kind of wasn't, just to be a little more accepted as well, which in the short term can help, but in the long term, it's not a healthy way. It's not a healthy way, and it makes it even more, a lot worse as well. As I've found out, I felt that having to do, having to sort of try and mask who I am, or trying to downplay some of my achievements and stuff like that. It might seem
Absolutely.
in the short term like you're being more confident. In the long term, I feel like in a way I was deluding myself and feeling even more of a fraud than what I thought I was, or what I thought I am. I mean,
And
it's interesting how Freddie Mercury, you said, mentioned
yeah,
had imposter syndrome as well, and he's iconic. He's
yeah,
one of the best people around. I mean, Queen, the band, were one of the best around, and people still love the music even now. And it's, I mean, I was brought up on Queen music as well, and it was some of the best music I'd ever heard. And Freddie Mercury, he was an icon. He was a legend. He was a badass.
absolutely. And yet suffered
Yeah.
really debilitating levels of imposter syndrome. And I was just, as I said, I was just blown away when I found that out. And realised just how much he struggled, internally with imposter syndrome. So, moving on a little bit with that internal struggle with it that I just mentioned, do you think that imposter syndrome is more of an internal struggle, or is it more of a response to external factors, such as workplace discrimination or societal expectations, which, of course, us neurodivergent people are more likely to experience?
I think both. I'd say
Mm,
both.
yeah.
I'm probably my own toughest critic. Um, and I just feel sometimes I get frustrated with myself because on one end I think I can do better in some areas, or I should be really good at different areas. For example, like software testing, programming, even sort of areas outside of work, including martial arts and stuff. Whereas other places, other times I just think, um, partly because of in the past, I've been pigeonholed into roles which people have thought would be good for me, but my heart's not always been in it, and I've wanted to try other things, and I've been told and told and told again, you need to be a bit more proficient before you can get experience in X, or you need to be good at X before learning a bit more about Y and stuff like that, or there's high pressures to get work done in short timescales and stuff like that, which for some people it works, but for other people who may work a little differently, it's not the most helpful advice at all. It's like it's like telling it's like telling somebody who has got who is good at deciphering codes and sort of really good at puzzles and stuff like that. Oh, because you can't work this kind of puzzle, then we can't let you try something else as well, regardless of what they've done as well. And I think being pigeonholed into roles, or being sort of taken restricted work in some areas as well, just because people don't always see the value that they're bringing as well. That's also sort of contributed to my imposter syndrome as well. What I've had as well. I mean, sometimes I'll even now sometimes just check if I've written an article or if I've done something or if I've written a piece of work which other people might think is good. I'll check it with people just to sort of say, just to sort of see, is this like Freddie Mercury would do? Is this good enough? Is this kind of thing is okay? I mean, I did a talk about mental health and cybersecurity, touching on cybersecurity about 5 years ago, and I even asked a cybersecurity professional after I did the talk, was what I included in the talk okay? Did it help? Did it help? Has it helped you all? And just because partly I know little about it, but I just I I just feel that sometimes I should know more than what I do sometimes, and that also adds to it as well. But for societal expectations, there's a lot of bias still, unfortunately, I believe, towards neurodivergent professionals as opposed to neurotypical professionals who learn more about to learn more to sort of do more or get more things done or be proficient as well. And I think sometimes the better way is to let people explore the areas, see what they're good at, see where they can upskill and grow, but given sort of a guidance and mentoring as well to help them grow with a career with sort of like a structured path if needed to help them get to where they want to go to.
Absolutely. You've mentioned as well something that those of us that are
Yeah,
neurodivergent um, come across, day in and day out, and that's the bias and stigma
yeah.
around being neurodivergent. So, how do you think that biases and stereotypes about neurodiversity contribute to feelings of imposter syndrome?
I think it's because a lot of the time there's a lot of there's a lot of there's a lot of prejudice which has been for a long while and it's manifested in people as well. Um, and a lot of people as well and in organizations where neurodivergent professionals may need more time to do stuff or may need or a lot of people just don't know about awareness within neurodivergent professionals. And I've known a lot of people who are neurodivergent because businesses don't understand can put them on performance improvement plans, not necessarily for any fault of the neurodivergent professionals like myself, um, or being sort of taken off some projects and put onto other projects which are a bit more mundane or a bit more menial as well. And I think a lot of it is to do with the fact that you're there's not a lot of awareness or there's not a lot of training about it as well, which does frustrate me because if businesses could see what value neurodivergent professionals can bring, they'll see people like us as well as other groups in a different light as well. I mean, I've got friends who've got ADHD and they've got really when they focus, they've got really good razor sharp sort of like very meticulous attention to detail. I'm slow at a lot of the jobs I do, but I'll be meticulous and I'll be thorough with what I do. I'd rather do that than just rush through things just to hit deadlines and just to meet targets and tick boxes.
Absolutely, and I'm exactly the same. I'd rather do that as well. Moving on to reasonable adjustments,
Yeah.
and with those, there is a huge myth. I mean, I talk to a lot of businesses of all different sizes, and the moment I say the phrase reasonable adjustments, I always get hit with, no, we can't consider that because it's going to cost us loads of money to implement, when the reality is that there are a lot of reasonable adjustments that can be made that don't cost any money at all. So, what would you say are some effective strategies that neurodivergent individuals can use to manage and reduce levels of imposter syndrome?
I think reachable adjustments, a lot of them, you're right, where a lot of them say a lot of them cost nothing to do, and it's
Mm.
not just benefits them, but it benefits other people as well in the workforce as well. And
Yeah.
a lot of the time, it can make all the difference as well. But for myself, reasonable adjustments have included time to ex t taken time a little extra time to sort of complete work as well. At one place where I worked, which is a good organisation, I had a meeting with a manager as just started working there from a place where I had a really, really bad experience and was experiencing sort of workplace bullying and being told I was useless at my job, basically. Um, so I was coming into this new role with anxiety and just wondering if this was going to work out. But fortunately, I had a good manager who arranged a meeting where I explained my understanding of some of the systems that I was going to be testing so far, and then I asked questions as well to help fill in the gaps, and that way, just by them making a bit of time as well to go through things, paid off in the long run. And by the end of the first week, I actually thought this place is not going to be that bad after all. My new manager is good and somebody who is respectful towards me as well, and will take my needs into account. I also think as well that businesses as well should create an environment where people are free to disclose any neurodivergent conditions, because not everybody who is neurodivergent wants to disclose for fear of retaliation or having the sort of stigmas or being told, oh, we can't make any reasonable adjustments, which in a way, I feel is a lot of is ignorance on their part as well. Whereas if they were reasonable adjustments were made, we could it could actually make the difference between a neurodivergent professional flourishing in an organisation than sort of struggling and being told that they're no good. And it's things like that which make a good workplace or a bad workplace.
Absolutely. And I think as well, a lot is to do with how we as neurodivergent individuals
Yeah.
can reframe our successes. So, how would you say that we can learn to, reframe our achievements and recognize our worth, even if we feel and we have that really strong sense of feeling that we don't belong?
I mean, a number of things which I've done myself for reframing successes. When I've done a talk or when I've done a piece of work, I'll reflect on what's gone well, what could be improved as well as what I can learn for next time as well. The talks I do for mental health as well, even at first, I felt like a complete fraud doing it, and there's a lot of better. I sometimes feel there's a lot of better people out there to do talks on that area as well, plus other areas. Um, I'll I'll learn sort of what's gone well, what to include in other areas. Um, for example, plus I'll also sort of research a little bit more about these areas as well to help me feel that I'm keeping more relevant as well. I'll also I also think sort of peer support groups as well, where and friends as well, people who can actually bounce ideas off as well. Like the talk we did back at November time for Cyber Women Group CIC. That was good
Yeah,
because we could bounce ideas off each other as well as as well as the people like Sophie and Jenny to make the talks more to make the talk and add and give it more and add more value to that as well. And I think as well, sort of celebrating your achievements as well along the way. So even if it's just sort of like a small achievement, you've completed a piece of work, or you've done something, or you've prevented a catastrophic bug. If it from a software testing perspective, or you caught a few issues earlier on, um, small achievements like that. I mean, I've got a feel good folder at most workplaces where I've worked as well. Where I put in the nice messages what people have written about good work that I've done as well. So sometimes when I'm feeling a bit low, I will take a look at it. I mean, things like that, and I've keep a sort of like a small record of achievements, a little like the record of achievements that I used to have at school as well, where you could record how well you've done with certain subjects, what you've learned as well, how you've progressed as well. So look, keeping a progression chart as well as to how well I've actually done over a specific period of time.
Absolutely. I remember the record of achievement. Actually, I
Yeah,
had similar at school. And thinking about it, that was probably doing that record of achievement was probably instrumental in me actually getting my achievements sort of down on paper. So that's something that I've always done that I
yeah.
remember doing since then, since school. I'm sure it was the record of achievement that led me into doing that. Um, just going to move on to chatting a bit about therapeutic approaches. Do you think that there are any therapeutic approaches? So things like coaching or self-help strategies that you find particularly effective for addressing imposter syndrome, but particularly in neurodivergent people?
Good question. So I think with therapies, it will apply differently to each person, and I think different therapies will work with different professionals as well. And for myself, I've done some cognitive behavioral therapy before, where I've reframed certain issues I have to help me manage them a bit better as well. I've also started looking more at the Eisenhower matrix as well, um, and sort of looking at which things I need to tackle now, which things I can plan to do as well. So at least I'm not overwhelmed. And if I'm unsure about a specific area, learn more about it, speak to more people about it, research, research more about it. I mean, and I think for myself, I have looked at a lot of self-help books in the past as well. Some, some are better, some are better, some I think are more useful for myself more than other people as well. And I don't sort of follow it all to the letter or to the T because I think sometimes as well, it can vary from people to people and everyone's different. We're not, we're, we're not, there's not really a one size fits all, but one book um, which I had used as well for a lot of helping to manage imposter syndrome was called The Naked Leader by David Taylor, which the book's written a little like the choose your own adventure books, where as soon as you finish one chapter, it will say if you want to learn more about reverse headhunting, go to page 22, or if you want to go to learn more about delivering effective presentations, go to chapter 34 or page 205, just to and it just gave sort of simple ideas on how you can actually sort of work on yourself as well. I also think as well for managing imposter syndrome as well, um, practicing practicing certain skills as well. I mean, with presentations when I first started, I was doing talks to student chapters from British Computer Society with a colleague, um, and a lot of the time I felt they were better speaker than me, so a lot of the time I was actually pushing myself to be as good as them. But I realised as well over time, with any kind of skill, you get better at it through practice and learning about it, what's gone well, what you could improve. And I think as well, it's one of those things. I also think as well, sort of like a peer support group as well is also good, where I've got professionals who I can speak to about certain areas on how I can develop as well. I'll also ask them for advice as well, or if I've got a talk I need to do. Sometimes I'll practice I'll practice with a couple of people as well, just to make sure that what I say is good. And a lot of the time, I know what mistakes I make. Every talk I do, I always know where I've messed up or I've slipped over. But a lot of people who I've spoken to afterwards don't even recognise it. But a lot of but I also think as well, coaching if is also useful as well as having a mentor. I mean, I see that with I mean, I've had mentors when I first developed talks as well as professional mentors within areas of my life, and I feel that with that, it gives me something to focus on. I can learn from them and their experience, and and it's somewhere where I can sort of say how I'm feeling, how well or I think how well I'm doing, as well as areas which I can improve and develop as well.
Absolutely. And I had EMDR therapy to help me overcome some really deep-seated trauma that I'd had throughout my life, and to overcome a huge amount of bullying and abuse that I'd had aimed at me throughout my lifetime. And I've also had a really good coach who I also have interviewed for Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day today. And she was instrumental in helping me overcome some of those blocks that I had, and also getting me to understand my worth and what I bring
Yeah,
to the table. And then interacting with people like yourself. Yeah, you mentioned that event we did.
yeah,
Always. So I've got people in my support network like yourself.
yeah.
I've got mentors, people I can reach out to. That's so important, like you say, to help you grow and develop. Um, so just moving on to a little bit with that peer support and mentorship theme, how valuable would you say that having that network and that peer support has been for you in terms of managing your levels of imposter syndrome?
I think they're very important, and I think they're very helpful as well. I mean, I've got some good resources, and there's a lot of good supportive groups as well. I mean, the cyber women groups, I found that they've been very helpful. I mean, when I've actually spoken to a lot of them, they've all been very supportive and encouraging. I mean, I'm going to admit myself that last year when they had the first birthday bash, I actually thought that I didn't really belong there because I thought that I knew very little about cybersecurity. I was there more as an ally, but then people actually said to me that it's people like myself as well as you, and people like Matt Treadwell and Sophia McCall have they really are thankful for the help, the encouragement, the nurturing as well, and to get them and to encourage the next generation of cybersecurity and encourage diversity and inclusion. I mean, a lot of women from cyber women's group CRC, they've actually mentioned to me before, Lisa, that a lot of them really look up to you, and you're held in high regard throughout the whole community. And and I actually felt there. I thought at one point I thought I didn't deserve to be there, but then I had a few people saying that it's people like myself do belong there as well, and the
Mm.
fact that
Yeah.
now I've got a lot of good friends out of there as well. I mean, I'm always, I mean, and I feel honoured now that people like them, as well as other areas of, including British Computer Society, value what people like yourself and myself do as well, and what difference we make to the community. And I think having that support network of people, having people who are in your corner and people who accept you for who you are and will cheer you on, um, are really is essential, and it makes such a difference as well. And it helps you feel like you're not alone anymore. Um, I mean, I've got some really good colleagues within the British Computer Society. some within different specialist groups, but others within the software testing specialist group, the South Yorkshire BCS branch, um, who've just been really supportive and encouraging, as well as some of the staff at BCS as well, who've also made working there and volunteering there a really good thing to do as well. I mean, the same, I also use karate as a support group as well, where it helps me with my mental health. When I first started volunteering to be an instructor, I felt a bit of a fraud, but then through practice, I've gained trust of a lot of people. I've also helped a lot of students as well, um, grow as well, and seeing them rewarding and interacting with them all makes it an even better place. And you're actually thinking at the end of the day, yes, you are actually making a difference. You are actually sort of helping people who are sort of like making the world a better place to be.
Absolutely. And you absolutely do belong. And
Thank
you
you.
are making, InfoSec and cyber a much, much better place to be. And honestly, I love, interacting and talking to you and people like yourselves.
Thank you.
It's so
Likewise.
important. It really is. We're almost coming up to the end, but I've got one other thing I want to focus on just before we move on to the sort of summing up and
Yeah.
final bit of advice. But I'm going to focus a little bit on changing the narrative around imposter syndrome. So, how do you think that we can shift the conversation from overcoming imposter syndrome or managing it to creating an environment where neurodivergent individuals don't feel like imposters in the first place?
Very good question, and I'm going to tackle it from two angles. One with organisations and networking groups, and the rest is going to be um, towards your divergent professionals. So the first one, organisations and networking events and sort of conferences, making sure that you have a welcoming and open environment where people aren't afraid to share ideas, where diversity diversity is celebrated, and people feel nurtured, understood, and accepted for who they are. Uh, and I think organisations can look at how neurodivergent professionals, what value they actually bring to a business. And within cybersecurity, there's a lot of neurodivergent professionals who I know and who have heard of as well, who are making such a big difference to the industry. And a lot of them are really, really good at what they do, at what they do as well. Other areas including software development and testing, where you've got people you've got people who can look at different problems which other people might not have even thought about, and saved a lot of money finding faults before they've been deployed before software releases have been deployed to the live environment, and saving any sort of damage to reputation and embarrassment. So organizations, if they can look at where what value neurodivergent professionals can bring and create an environment where they feel safe, accepted, and understood, is it you're onto a you're onto a better track, and it's a win-win situation. And with neurodivergent professionals, looking at what skills you can bring to an organization, what value you can bring to the community, what your skill set are, and working to be strengths, and working to your strengths. And if there's any areas where you can improve, work on them where you can. But if not, it's not too making sure that it's not too much of a concern or an issue, because at the end of the day, all of us are great at different things. Um, there's a lot of people who are a lot better than myself in testing. However, that said, I've still got my own strengths, and I can still add value where they may have overlooked something as well. So it all balances itself out. I mean, that's why good organizations have different people in the team who can look at different things. Um, and some of the best people I've worked alongside look at things in a different way or in a different light. It's about finding the environment that works for you and tailoring that and tailoring environment to help your needs. I mean, some people who are neurodivergent are really good are like not some are really good on night owls and can work better later on during the day. I myself work better in the mornings and sometimes at certain points throughout the day as well. Um, it all varies from person to person really, but looking at your strengths, looking at what you can bring to organisations, and organisations making sure that they know the value that neurodivergent professionals can bring, tailoring the recruitment process so it's not just a formal interview where you're asked a lot of questions, which can seem overwhelming, but looking at other ways you can hire people as well, and making sure that once you've got them hired, you've got some re you've got an environment which is inclusive, um, is sort of flexible as well, and reasonable adjustments aren't an issue. And you'll find that with men, which a lot of reasonable adjustments, like you say earlier, cost nothing or very little to do, and it's a really good investment. I mean, a lot of the best communities which I've found, including Cyber Women Group CIC, they create an encouraging, nurturing environment where people are encouraged to develop, encouraged to grow, as well as encouraging people to speak at different events. And the same with British Computer Society, and as for software testing, the Ministry of Testing as well. So making sure you've got to create a good environment where people can be themselves and people can be understood and accepted, and you're on to a winner.
Absolutely, Andy. And I think that's an absolutely brilliant thing to finish off
Thank you.
on. You gave some wonderful advice there. I think anybody listening to this today is going to get some really good insights
Thank you.
from you, especially around the whole sort of piece
Yeah.
and how us who are neurodivergent um, respond to and manage levels of imposter syndrome. So thank you so much for coming on today and being a guest for
Pleasure.
International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day.
Thank you.
We've got more events coming up throughout the day, so please do keep tuned in and join us for those. And we'll see you on the next event very shortly.